Chapter 22. When I saw them sitting in their shirt sleeves, leaning forward, gripping their crossed knees with their hands, I wasn't surprised. I'm glad it's you, I thought, this will be business without tears. It was as though I had expected to find them there, just as in those dreams in which I encountered my grandfather looking at me from across the dimensionless space of a dream room. I looked back without surprise or emotion, although I knew even in the dream that surprise was the normal reaction and that the lack of it was to be distrusted, a warning. I stood just inside the room, watching them as I slipped off my jacket, seeing them grouped around a small table upon which there rested a pitcher of water, a glass and a couple of smoking ashtrays. One half of the room was dark and only one light burned, directly above the table. They regarded me silently, Brother Jack with a smile that went no deeper than his lips, his head cocked to one side, studying me with his penetrating eyes, the others blank-faced, looking out of eyes that were meant to reveal nothing and to stir profound uncertainty. The smoke rose in spirals from their cigarettes as they sat perfectly contained, waiting. So you came, after all, I thought, going over and dropping into one of the chairs. I rested my arm on the table, noticing its coolness. Well, how did it go? Brother Jack said, extending his clasped hands across the table and looking at me with his head to one side. You saw the crowd, I said. We finally got them out. No, we did not see the crowd. How was it? They were moved, I said, a great number of them. But beyond that I don't know. They were with us, but how far I don't know. And for a moment I could hear my own voice in the quiet of the high-ceilinged hall. So, is that all the great tactician has to tell us? Brother Talbot said. In what direction were they moved? I looked at him, aware of the numbness of my emotions. They had flowed in one channel too long and too deeply. That's for the committee to decide. They were aroused, that was all we could do. We tried again and again to reach the committee for guidance but we couldn't. So we went ahead on my personal responsibility. Brother Jack's eyes narrowed. What was that? He said. Your what? My personal responsibility, I said. His personal responsibility, Brother Jack said. Did you hear that, brothers? Did I hear him correctly? Where did you get it, brother? He said. This is astounding, where did you get it? From your ma, I started and caught myself in time. From the committee, I said. There was a pause. I looked at him, his face reddening, as I tried to get my bearings. A nerve trembled in the center of my stomach. Everyone came out, I said, trying to fill it in. We saw the opportunity and the community agreed with us. It's too bad you missed it. You see, he's sorry we missed it, Brother Jack said. He held up his hand. I could see the deeply etched lines in his palm. The great tactician of personal responsibility regrets our absence. Doesn't he see how I feel, I thought, can't he see why I did it? What's he trying to do? Talbot's a fool, but why is he taking it up? You could have taken the next step, I said, forcing the words. We went as far as we could. On your personal responsibility, Brother Jack said, bowing his head in time with the words. I looked at him steadily now. I was told to win back our following, so I tried. The only way I knew how. What's your criticism? What's wrong? So now, he said, rubbing his eye with a delicate circular movement of his fist, the great tactician asks what's wrong. Is it possible that something could be wrong? Do you hear him, brothers? There was a cough. Someone poured a glass of water and I could hear it fill up very fast. Then the rapid drill-like trickle of the final drops dripping from the pitcher lip into the glass. I looked at him, my mind trying to bring things into focus. You mean he admits the possibility of being incorrect? Talbot said. Sheer modesty, brother. The sheerest modesty. We have here an extraordinary tactician, a Napoleon of strategy and personal responsibility. Strike while the iron is hot is his motto. Seize the instance by its throat, shoot at the whites of their eyes, give them the axe, and so forth. I stood up. I don't know what this is all about, brother. What are you trying to say? Now there is a good question, brothers. Sit down, please, it's hot. He wants to know what we're trying to say. We have here not only an extraordinary tactician, but one who has an appreciation for subtleties of expression. Yes, and for sarcasm, when it's good, I said. And for discipline? Sit down, please, it's hot. And for discipline. And for orders and consultation when it's possible to have them, I said. Brother Jack grinned. Sit down, and for patience. When I'm not sleepy and exhausted, I said, and not overheated as I am just now. You'll learn, he said. You'll learn and you'll surrender yourself to it even under such conditions. Especially under such conditions, that's its value. That makes it patience. Yes, I guess I'm learning now, I said. Right now. Brother, he said dryly, you have no idea how much you're learning, please sit down. All right, I said, sitting down again. But while ignoring my personal education for a second, I'd like you to remember that the people have little patience with us these days. We could use this time more profitably. And I could tell you that politicians are not personal persons, Brother Jack said, but I won't. How could we use it more profitably? By organizing their anger. So again our great tactician has relieved himself. Today he's a busy man. First an oration over the body of Brutus, and now a lecture on the patience of the Negro people. Talbot was enjoying himself. I could see his cigarette tremble in his lips as he struck a match to light it. I move we issue his remarks in a pamphlet, he said, running his finger over his chin. They should create a natural phenomenon. This had better stop right here, I thought. My head was getting lighter and my chest felt tight. Look, I said, an unarmed man was killed. A brother, a leading member shot down by a policeman. We had lost our prestige in the community. I saw the chance to rally the people, so I acted. If that was incorrect, then I did wrong, so say it straight without this crap. It'll take more than sarcasm to deal with that crowd out there. Brother Jack reddened, the others exchanged glances. He hasn't read the newspapers, someone said. You forget, Brother Jack said, it wasn't necessary, he was there. Yes, I was there, I said. If you're referring to the killing. There, you see, Brother Jack said. He was on the scene. Brother Talbot pushed the table edge with his palms. And still you organized that sideshow of a funeral. My nose twitched. I turned toward him deliberately, forcing a grin. How could there be a sideshow without you as the star attraction, who'd draw the two-bits admission, Brother Talbots? What was wrong with the funeral? Now we're making progress, Brother Jack said, straddling his chair. The strategist has raised a very interesting question. What's wrong, he asks. All right, I'll answer. Under your leadership, a traitorous merchant of vile instruments of anti-Negro, anti-minority racist bigotry has received the funeral of a hero. Do you still ask what's wrong? But nothing was done about a traitor, I said. He half stood, gripping the back of his chair. We all heard you admit it. We dramatized the shooting down of an unarmed black man. He threw up his hands. To hell with you, I thought. To hell with you. He was a man. That black man, as you call him, was a traitor, Brother Jack said. A traitor? What is a traitor, brother? I asked, feeling an angry amusement as I counted on my fingers. He was a man and a Negro, a man and a brother, a man and a traitor, as you say, then he was a dead man, and alive or dead he was jam full of contradictions. So full that he attracted half of Harlem to come out and stand in the sun in answer to our call. So what is a traitor? So now he retreats, Brother Jack said. Observe him, brothers. After putting the movement in the position of forcing a traitor down the throats of the Negroes, he asks what a traitor is. Yes, I said. Yes, and, as you say, it's a fair question, brother. Some folks call me traitor because I've been working downtown, some would call me a traitor if I was in civil service, and others if I simply sat in my corner and kept quiet. Sure, I considered what Clifton did, and you defend him. Not for that. I was as disgusted as you. But hell, isn't the shooting of an unarmed man of more importance politically than the fact that he sold obscene dolls? So you exercised your personal responsibility, Jack said. That's all I had to go on. I wasn't called to the strategy meeting, remember? Didn't you see what you were playing with? Talbot said. Have you no respect for your people? It was a dangerous mistake to give you the opportunity, one of the others said. I looked across at him. The committee can take it away, if it wishes. But meantime, why is everyone so upset? If even 1/10 of the people looked at the dolls as we do, our work would be a lot easier. The dolls are nothing. Nothing, Jack said. That nothing that might explode in our face. I sighed. Your faces are safe, brother, I said. Can't you see that they don't think in such abstract terms? If they did, perhaps the new program wouldn't have flopped. The Brotherhood isn't the Negro people, no organization is. All you see in Clifton's death is that it might harm the prestige of the Brotherhood. You see him only as a traitor. But Harlem doesn't react that way. Now he's lecturing us on the conditioned reflexes of the Negro people, Talbot said. I looked at him. I was very tired. And what is the source of your great contributions to the movement, brother? A career in burlesque? And of your profound knowledge of Negroes? Are you from an old plantation-owning family? Does your black mammy shuffle nightly through your dreams? He opened his mouth and closed it like a fish. I'll have you know that I'm married to a fine, intelligent Negro girl, he said. So that's what makes you so cocky, I thought, seeing now how the light struck him at an angle and made a wedge-shaped shadow beneath his nose. So that's it. And how did I guess there was a woman in it? Brother, I apologize, I said. I misjudged you. You have our number. In fact, you must be practically a Negro yourself. Was it by immersion or injection? Now see here, he said, pushing back his chair. Come on, I thought, just make a move. Just another little move. Brothers, Jack said, his eyes on me. Let's stick to the discussion. I'm intrigued. You were saying? I watched Talbot. He glared. I grinned. I was saying that up here we know that the policeman didn't care about Clifton's ideas. He was shot because he was black and because he resisted. Mainly because he was black. Brother Jack frowned. You're riding race again. But how do they feel about the dolls? I'm riding the race I'm forced to ride, I said. And as for the dolls, they know that as far as the cops were concerned, Clifton could have been selling song sheets. Bibles, matzos. If he'd been white, he'd be alive. Or if he'd accepted being pushed around. Black and white and black, Talbot said. Must we listen to this racist nonsense? You don't, brother Negro, I said. You get your own information straight from the source. Is it a mulatto source, brother? Don't answer, the only thing wrong is that your source is too narrow. You don't really think that crowd turned out today because Clifton was a member of the Brotherhood? And why did they turn out? Jack said, getting set as if to pounce forward. Because we gave them the opportunity to express their feelings, to affirm themselves. Brother Jack rubbed his eye. Do you know that you have become quite a theoretician? He said. You astound me. I doubt that, brother, but there's nothing like isolating a man to make him think, I said. Yes, that's true, some of our best ideas have been thought in prison. Only you haven't been in prison, brother, and you were not hired to think. Had you forgotten that? If so, listen to me, you were not hired to think. He was speaking very deliberately and I thought, so here it is, naked and old and rotten. So now it's out in the open. So now I know where I am, I said, and with whom, don't twist my meaning. For all of us, the committee does the thinking. For all of us. And you were hired to talk. That's right, I was hired. Things have been so brotherly I had forgotten my place. But what if I wish to express an idea? We furnish all ideas. We have some acute ones. Ideas are part of our apparatus. Only the correct ideas for the correct occasion. And suppose you misjudge the occasion? Should that ever happen, you keep quiet. Even though I am correct? You say nothing unless it is passed by the committee. Otherwise I suggest you keep saying the last thing you were told. And when my people demand that I speak, the committee will have an answer. I looked at him. The room was hot, quiet, smoky. The others looked at me strangely. I heard the nervous sound of someone mashing out a cigarette in a glass ashtray. I pushed back my chair, breathing deeply, controlled. I was on a dangerous road and I thought of Clifton and tried to get off of it. I said nothing. Suddenly Jack smiled and slipped back into his fatherly role. "Let us handle the theory and the business of strategy," he said. "We are experienced. We're graduates, and while you are a smart beginner, you skipped several grades. But they were important grades, especially for gaining strategical knowledge. For such it is necessary to see the overall picture. More is involved than meets the eye. With the long view and the short view and the overall view mastered, perhaps you won't slander the political consciousness of the people of Harlem." Can't he see I'm trying to tell them what's real, I thought. Does my membership stop me from feeling Harlem? All right, I said. Have it your way, brother, only the political consciousness of Harlem is exactly a thing I know something about. That's one class they wouldn't let me skip. I'm describing a part of reality which I know. And that is the most questionable statement of all, Talbot said. I know, I said, running my thumb along the edge of the table. Your private source tells you differently. History's made at night, eh, brother? I've warned you, Talbot said. Brother to brother, I said, try getting around more. You might learn that today was the first time that they've listened to our appeals in weeks. And I'll tell you something else, if we don't follow through on what was done today, this might be the last. So, he's finally gotten around to predicting the future, Brother Jack said. It's possible. Though I hope not. He's in touch with God, Talbot said. The Black God. I looked at him and grinned. He had gray eyes and his irises were very wide, the muscles ridged out on his jaws. I had his guard down and he was swinging wild. Not with God, nor with your wife, brother, I told him. I've never met either. But I've worked among the people up here. Ask your wife to take you around to the gin mills and the barber shops and the juke joints and the churches, brother. Yes, and the beauty parlors on Saturdays when they're frying hair. A whole unrecorded history is spoken then, brother. You wouldn't believe it, but it's true. Tell her to take you to stand in the areaway of a cheap tenement at night and listen to what is said. Put her out on the corner, let her tell you what's being put down. You'll learn that a lot of people are angry because we failed to lead them in action. I'll stand on that as I stand on what I see and feel and on what I've heard, and what I know. No, Brother Jack said, getting to his feet, you'll stand on the decision of the committee. We've had enough of this. The committee makes your decisions and it is not its practice to give undue importance to the mistaken notions of the people. What's happened to your discipline? I'm not arguing against discipline. I'm trying to be useful. I'm trying to point out a part of reality which the committee seems to have missed. With just one demonstration we could, the committee has decided against such demonstrations, Brother Jack said. Such methods are no longer effective. Something seemed to move out from under me, and out of the corner of my eye I was suddenly aware of objects on the dark side of the hall. But didn't anyone see what happened today? I said. What was that, a dream? What was ineffective about that crowd? Such crowds are only our raw materials, one of the raw materials to be shaped to our program. I looked around the table and shook my head. No wonder they insult me and accuse us of betraying them. There was a sudden movement. Repeat that, Brother Jack shouted, stepping forward. It's true, I'll repeat it. Until this afternoon they've been saying that the Brotherhood betrayed them. I'm telling you what's been said to me, and that it why Brother Clifton disappeared. That's an indefensible lie, Brother Jack said. And I looked at him slowly now, thinking, if this is it, this is it. Don't call me that, I said softly. Don't ever call me that, none of you. I've told you what I've heard. My hand was in my pocket now, Brother Tarp's leg chain around my knuckles. I looked at each of them individually, trying to hold myself back and yet feeling it getting away from me. My head was whirling as though I were riding a supersonic merry-go-round. Jack looked at me, a new interest behind his eyes, leaned forward. "So you've heard it," he said. "Very well, so now hear this. We do not shape our policies to the mistaken and infantile notions of the man in the street. Our job is not to ask them what they think but to tell them." "You've said that," I said, "and that's one thing you can tell them yourself. Who are you, anyway, the Great White Father?" "Not their father, their leader." "And your leader?" "And don't forget it." "My leader, sure, but what's your exact relationship to them?" His red head bristled. "The leader. As leader of the Brotherhood, I am their leader." "But are you sure you aren't their Great White Father?" I said, watching him closely, aware of the hot silence and feeling tension race from my toes to my legs as I drew my feet quickly beneath me. "Wouldn't it be better if they called you Mars, Jack?" "Now see here," he began, leaping to his feet to lean across the table, and I spun my chair half around on its hind legs as he came between me and the light, gripping the edge of the table, spluttering and lapsing into a foreign language, choking and coughing and shaking his head as I balanced on my toes now, set to propel myself forward, seeing him above me and the others behind him as suddenly something seemed to erupt out of his face. "You're seeing things," I thought, hearing it strike sharply against the table and roll as his arm shot out and snatched an object the size of a large marble and dropped it, plop, into his glass, and I could see the water shooting up in a ragged, light-breaking pattern to spring in swift droplets across the oiled tabletop. The room seemed to flatten. I shot to a high plateau above them and down, feeling the jolt on the end of my spine as the chair legs struck the floor. The merry-go-round had speeded up. I heard his voice but no longer listened. I stared at the glass, seeing how the light shone through, throwing a transparent, precisely fluted shadow against the dark grain of the table, and there on the bottom of the glass lay an eye. A glass eye. A buttermilk white eye distorted by the light rays. An eye staring fixedly at me as from the dark waters of a well. Then I was looking at him standing above me, outlined by the light against the darkened half of the hall. "You must accept discipline. Either you accept decisions or you get out." I stared into his face, feeling a sense of outrage. His left eye had collapsed, a line of raw redness showing where the lid refused to close, and his gaze had lost its command. I looked from his face to the glass, thinking, he's disemboweled himself just in order to confound me. And the others had known it all along. They aren't even surprised. I stared at the eye, aware of Jack pacing up and down, shouting, "Brother, are you following me?" He stopped, squinting at me with cyclopean irritation. "What is the matter?" I stared up at him, unable to answer. Then he understood and approached the table, smiling maliciously. "So that's it. So it makes you uncomfortable, does it? You're a sentimentalist," he said, sweeping up the glass and causing the eye to turn over in the water so that now it seemed to peer down at me from the ringed bottom of the glass. He smiled, holding the tumbler level with his empty socket, swirling the glass. "You didn't know about this?" "No, and I didn't want to know." Someone laughed. "See, that demonstrates how long you've been with us." He lowered the glass. "I lost my eye in the line of duty. What do you think of that?" he said with a pride that made me all the angrier. "I don't give a damn how you lost it as long as you keep it hidden. That is because you don't appreciate the meaning of sacrifice. I was ordered to carry through an objective and I carried it through. Understand? Even though I had to lose my eye to do it." He was gloating now, holding up the eye in the glass as though it were a medal of merit. "Not much like that traitor Clifton, is it?" Talbot said. The others were amused. "All right," I said. "All right. It was a heroic act. It saved the world, now hide the bleeding wound." "Don't over-evaluate it," Jack said, quieter now. "The heroes are those who die. This was nothing, after it happened. A minor lesson in discipline. And do you know what discipline is, brother? Personal responsibility? It's sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. He slammed the glass upon the table, splashing the water on the back of my hand. I shook like a leaf. So that is the meaning of discipline, I thought, sacrifice. Yes, and blindness. He doesn't see me. He doesn't even see me. Am I about to strangle him? I do not know. He cannot possibly. I still do not know. See. Discipline is sacrifice. Yes, and blindness. Yes. And me sitting here while he tries to intimidate me. That's it, with his goddamn blind glass eye. Should you show him you get it? Shouldn't you? Shouldn't he know it? Hurry. Shouldn't you? Look at it there, a good job, an almost perfect imitation that seemed alive. Should you? Shouldn't you? Maybe he got it where he learned that language he lapsed into. Shouldn't you? Make him speak the unknown tongue, the language of the future. What's mattering with you? Discipline. Is learning, didn't he say? Is it? I stand. You're sitting here, ain't I? You're holding on, ain't I? He said you'd learn, so you're learning, so he saw it all the time. He's a riddler, shouldn't we show him? So sit still is the way, and learn, never mind the eye, it's dead. All right now, look at him, see him turning now, left, right, coming short-legged toward you. See him, hep, hep. The one-eyed deacon. All right, hep, hep. The short-legged deacon. All right. Nail him. The short-changing dialectical deacon. All right. There, so now you're learning. Get it under control. Patience. Yes. I looked at him again as for the first time, seeing a little bantam rooster of a man with a high-domed forehead and a raw eye socket that wouldn't quite accept its lid. I looked at him carefully now, with some of the red spots fading and with the feeling that I was just awakening from a dream. I had boomeranged around. I realize how you feel, he said, becoming an actor who'd just finished a part in a play and was speaking again in his natural voice. I remember the first time I saw myself this way, and it wasn't pleasant. And don't think I wouldn't rather have my old one back. He felt in the water for his eye now, and I could see its smooth half-spherical, half-amorphous form slip between his two fingers and spurt around the glass as though looking for a way to break out. Then he had it, shaking off the water and breathing upon it as he walked across to the dark side of the room. But who knows, brothers, he said, with his back turned, perhaps if we do our work successfully the new society will provide me with a living guy. Such a thing is not at all fantastic, although I've been without mine for quite a while. What time is it, by the way? But what kind of society will make him see me, I thought, hearing Tabat answer, 6:15. Then we'd better leave immediately, we've got a long way to travel, he said, coming across the floor. He had his eye in place now and he was smiling. How's that? He asked me. I nodded. I was very tired. I simply nodded. Good, he said. I sincerely hope it never happens to you. Sincerely. If it should, maybe you'll recommend me to your oculist, I said, then I may not see myself as others see me not. He looked at me oddly then laughed. See, brothers, he's joking. He feels brotherly again. But just the same, I hope you'll never need one of these. Meanwhile go and see Hambro. He'll outline the program and give you the instructions. As for today, just let things float. It is a development that is important only if we make it so. Otherwise it will be forgotten, he said, getting into his jacket. And you'll see that it's best. The Brotherhood must act as a coordinated unit. I looked at him. I was becoming aware of smells again and I needed a bath. The others were standing now and moving toward the door. I stood up, feeling the shirt sticking to my back. One last thing, Jack said, placing his hand on my shoulder and speaking quietly. Watch that temper, that's discipline, too. Learn to demolish your brotherly opponents with ideas, with polemic skill. The other is for our enemies. Save it for them. And go get some rest. I was beginning to tremble. His face seemed to advance and recede and advance. He shook his head and smiled grimly. "I know how you feel," he said. "And it's too bad all that effort was for nothing. But that in itself is a kind of discipline. I speak to you of what I have learned, and I'm a great deal older than you. Good night." I looked at his eye. So he knows how I feel. Which eye is really the blind one? "Good night," I said. "Good night, brother," they all except Talbot said. "It'll be night, but it won't be good," I thought, calling a final good night. They left and I took my jacket and went and sat at my desk. I heard them passing down the stairs and the closing of the door below. I felt as though I'd been watching a bad comedy. Only it was real and I was living it, and it was the only historically meaningful life that I could live. If I left it, I'd be nowhere. As dead and as meaningless as Clifton. I felt for the doll in the shadow and dropped it on the desk. He was dead all right, and nothing would come of his death now. He was useless even for a scavenger action. He had waited too long, the directives had changed on him. He'd barely gotten by with a funeral. And that was all. It was only a matter of a few days, but he had missed and there was nothing I could do. But at least he was dead and out of it. I sat there a while, growing wilder and fighting against it. I couldn't leave and I had to keep contact in order to fight. But I would never be the same. Never. After tonight I wouldn't ever look the same, or feel the same. Just what I'd be, I didn't know. I couldn't go back to what I was, which wasn't much, but I'd lost too much to be what I was. Some of me, too, had died with Todd Clifton. So I would see Hambro, for whatever it was worth. I got up and went out into the hall. The glass was still on the table and I swept it across the room, hearing it rumble and roll in the dark. Then I went downstairs. Chapter 23. The bar downstairs was hot and crowded and there was a heated argument in progress over Clifton's shooting. I stood near the door and ordered a bourbon. Then someone noticed me, and they tried to draw me in. "Please, not tonight," I said. He was one of my best friends. "Oh, sure," they said, and I had another bourbon and left. When I reached 125th Street, I was approached by a group of civil liberties workers circulating a petition demanding the dismissal of the guilty policeman, and a block further on even the familiar woman street preacher was shouting a sermon about the slaughter of the innocents. A much broader group was stirred up over the shooting than I had imagined. Good, I thought, perhaps it won't die down after all. Maybe I'd better see Hambro tonight. Little groups were all along the street, and I moved with increasing speed until suddenly I had reached 7th Avenue, and there beneath a street lamp with the largest crowd around him was Ras the Exhorter, the last man in the world I wanted to see. And I had just turned back when I saw him lean down between his flags, shouting, "Look, look, black ladies and gentlemen. There goes the representative of the Brotherhood. Does Ras see correctly? Is that gentleman trying to pass us unnoticed? Ask him about it. What are you people waiting for, sir? What are you doing about our black youth shot down because of your deceitful organization?" They turned, looking at me, closing in. Some came up behind me and tried to push me further into the crowd. The exhorter leaned down, pointing at me, beneath the green traffic light. "Ask him what they are doing about it, ladies and gentlemen. Are they afraid, or are the white folks and their black stooges sticking together to betray us? Get your hands off me," I shouted as someone reached around and seized my arm. I heard a voice cursing me softly. "Give the brother a chance to answer," someone said. Their faces pressed in upon me. I wanted to laugh, for suddenly I realized that I didn't know whether I had been part of a sellout or not. But they were in no mood for laughter. "Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters," I said, "I disdain to answer such an attack. Since you all know me and my work, I don't think it's necessary. But it seems highly dishonorable to use the unfortunate death of one of our most promising young men as an excuse for attacking an organization that has worked to bring an end to such outrages. Who was the first organization to act against this killing? The Brotherhood. Who was the first to arouse the people? The Brotherhood. Who will always be the first to advance the cause of the people? Again the Brotherhood. We acted and we shall always act, I assure you. But in our own disciplined way. And we'll act positively. We refuse to waste our energies and yours in premature and ill-considered actions. We are Americans, all of us, whether black or white, regardless of what the man on the ladder there tells you, Americans. And we'll leave it to the gentleman up there to abuse the name of the dead. The Brotherhood grieves and feels deeply the loss of its brother. And we are determined that his death shall be the beginning of profound and lasting changes. It's easy enough to wait around for the minute a man is safely buried and then stand on a ladder and smear the memory of everything he believed in. But to create something lasting of his death takes time and careful planning. Gentlemen, Ras shouted, stick to the issue. You are not answering my question. What are you doing about the shooting? I moved toward the edge of the crowd. If this went any further, it could be disastrous. Stop abusing the dead for your own selfish ends, I said. Let him rest in peace. Quit mangling his corpse. I pushed away as he raged, hearing shouts of, tell him about it. Grave robber. The exhorter waved his arms and pointed, shouting, that man is a paid stooge of the white enslaver. Where has he been for the last few months when our black babies and women have been suffering? Let the dead rest in peace, I shouted, hearing someone call, "Oh man, go back to Africa." Everybody knows the brother. Good, I thought, good. Then there was a scuffle behind me and I whirled to see two men stop short. They were Ras's men. Listen, mister, I said up to him, if you know what's good for you, you'll call off your goons. Two of them seemed to want to follow me. And that is a damn lie. He shouted. There are witnesses if anything should happen to me. A man who'll dig up the dead hardly before he's buried will try anything, but I warn you. There were angry shouts from some of the crowd and I saw the men continue past me with hate in their eyes, leaving the crowd to disappear around the corner. Ras was attacking the Brotherhood now and others were answering him from the audience, and I went on, moving back toward Lenox, moving past a movie house when they grabbed me and started punching. But this time they'd picked the wrong spot, and the movie doorman intervened and they ran back toward Ras's street meeting. I thanked the doorman and went on. I had been lucky, they hadn't hurt me, but Ras was becoming bold again. On a less crowded street they might have done some damage. Reaching the avenue I stepped to the curb and signaled a cab, seeing it sail by. An ambulance went past, then another cab with its flag down. I looked back. I felt that they were watching me from somewhere up the street but I couldn't see them. Why didn't a taxi come? Then three men in natty cream-colored summer suits came to stand near me at the curb, and something about them struck me like a hammer. They were all wearing dark glasses. I had seen it thousands of times, but suddenly what I had considered an empty imitation of a Hollywood fad was flooded with personal significance. Why not, I thought, why not, and shot across the street and into the air-conditioned chill of a drugstore. I saw them on a case strewn with sun visors, hair nets, rubber gloves, a card of false eyelashes, and seized the darkest lenses I could find. They were of a green glass so dark that it appeared black, and I put them on immediately, plunging into blackness and moving outside. I could barely see, it was almost dark now, and the streets swarmed in a green vagueness. I moved slowly across to stand near the subway and wait for my eyes to adjust. A strange wave of excitement boiled within me as I peered out at the sinister light. And now through the hot gusts from the underground people were emerging and I could feel the trains vibrating the walk. A cab rolled up to discharge a passenger and I was about to take it when the woman came up the stairs and stopped before me, smiling. Now what, I thought, seeing her standing there, smiling in her tight-fitting summer dress, a large young woman who reeked with Christmas night perfume who now came close. Reinhardt, baby, is that you? She said. Reinhardt, I thought. So it works. She had her hand on my arm and faster than I thought I heard myself answer, is that you, baby? And waited with tense breath. Well, for once you're on time, she said. But what you doing bareheaded, where's your new hat I bought you? I wanted to laugh. The scent of Christmas night was enfolding me now, and I saw her face draw closer, her eyes widening. Say, you ain't Reinhardt, man. What you trying to do? You don't even talk like Rein. What's your story? I laughed, backing away. I guess we were both mistaken, I said. She stepped backward, clutching her bag, watching me, confused. I really meant no harm, I said. I'm sorry. Who was it you mistook me for? Reinhardt, and you'd better not let him catch you pretending to be him. No, I said. But you seemed so pleased to see him that I couldn't resist it. He's really a lucky man. And I could have sworn you was. Man, you get away from here before you get me in trouble, she said, moving aside, and I left. It was very strange. But that about the hat was a good idea, I thought, hurrying along now and looking out for Rass's men. I was wasting time. At the first hat shop I went in and bought the widest hat in stock and put it on. With this, I thought, I should be seen even in a snowstorm, only they'd think I was someone else. Then I was back in the street and moving toward the subway. My eyes adjusted quickly, the world took on a dark green intensity, the lights of cars glowed like stars, faces were a mysterious blur, the garish signs of movie houses muted down to a soft sinister glowing. I headed back for Rass's meeting with a bold swagger. This was the real test. If it worked, I would go on to Hambros without further trouble. In the angry period to come I would be able to move about. A couple of men approached, eating up the walk with long jaunty strides that caused their heavy silk sport shirts to flounce rhythmically upon their bodies. They too wore dark glasses, their hats were set high upon their heads, the brims turned down. A couple of hipsters, I thought, just as they spoke. "What you sayin', Daddy-o?" they said. "Reinhardt, Papa, tell us what you putting down," they said. "Oh, hell, they're probably his friends," I thought, waving and moving on. "We know what you're doing, Reinhardt," one of them called. "Play it cool, Olay man, play it cool." I waved again as though in on the joke. They laughed behind me. I was nearing the end of the block now, wet with sweat. Who was this Reinhardt and what was he putting down? I'd have to learn more about him to avoid further misidentifications. A car passed with its radio blaring. Ahead I could hear the exhorter barking harshly to the crowd. Then I was moving close, and coming to a stop conspicuously in the space left for pedestrians to pass through the crowd. To the rear they were lined up too deep before the store windows. Before me the listeners merged in a green-tinted gloom. The exhorter gestured violently, blasting the Brotherhood. "The time for action is here. We must chase them out of Harlem," he cried. And for a second I thought he had caught me in the sweep of his eyes, and tensed. Rass said chase them. "It is time Rass the exhorter become Rass the destroyer." Shouts of agreement arose and I looked behind me, seeing the men who had followed me and thinking, what did he mean, destroyer? I repeat, black ladies and gentlemen, the time has come for action. I, Rass the destroyer, repeat, the time has come. I trembled with excitement, they hadn't recognized me. It works, I thought. They see the hat, not me. There is a magic in it. It hides me right in front of their eyes. But suddenly I wasn't sure. With Rass calling for the destruction of everything white in Harlem, who could notice me? I needed a better test. If I was to carry out my plan. What plan? Hell, I don't know, come on. I weaved out of the crowd and left, heading for Hambros. A group of Zoot Suiters greeted me in passing. "Hey now, Daddy-o," they called. "Hey now. Hey now," I said. It was as though by dressing and walking in a certain way I had enlisted in a fraternity in which I was recognized at a glance, not by features, but by clothes, by uniform, by gait. But this gave rise to another uncertainty. I was not a Zoot Suiter, but a kind of politician. Or was I? What would happen in a real test? What about the fellows who'd been so insulting at the Jolly Dollar? I was halfway across 8th Avenue at the thought and retraced my steps, running for an uptown bus. There were many of the regular customers draped around the bar. The room was crowded and Barrelhouse was on duty. I could feel the frame of the glasses cutting into the ridge of my nose as I tilted my hat and squeezed up to the bar. Barrelhouse looked at me roughly, his lips pushed out. "What brand you drinking tonight, Papa Stopper?" he said. "Make it Ballantine's," I said in my natural voice. I watched his eyes as he set the beer before me and slapped the bar with his enormous hand for his money. Then, my heart beating faster, I made my old gesture of payment, spinning the coin upon the bar and waited. The coin disappeared into his fist. "Thanks, Pops," he said, moving on and leaving me puzzled. For there had been recognition of a kind in his voice, but not for me. He never called me Pops or Papa Stopper. It's working, I thought, perhaps it's working very well. Certainly something was working on me, and profoundly. Still I was relieved. It was hot. Perhaps that was it. I drank the cold beer, looking back to the rear of the room to the booths. A crowd of men and women moiled like nightmare figures in the smoke-green haze. The jukebox was dinning and it was like looking into the depths of a murky cave. And now someone moved aside, and looking down along the curve of the bar past the bobbing heads and shoulders I saw the jukebox, lit up like a bad dream of the fiery furnace, shouting, "Jelly, jelly, jelly," all night long. And yet, I thought, watching a numbers runner paying off a bet, this is one place that the Brotherhood definitely penetrated. Let Hambro explain that, too, along with all the rest he'd have to explain. I drained the glass and turned to leave, when there across at the lunch counter I saw Brother Machio. I moved impulsively, forgetting my disguise until almost upon him, then checked myself and put my disguise once more to a test. Reaching roughly across his shoulder I picked up a greasy menu that rested between the sugar shaker and the hot sauce bottle and pretended to read it through my dark lenses. "How are the ribs, Pops?" I said. "Fine, least these here I'm eatin' is." "Yeah? How much you know about ribs?" He raised his head slowly, looking across at the spitted chickens revolving before the low blue rotisserie flames. "I reckon I know as much about 'em as you," he said, "and probably more, since I probably been eatin' 'em a few years longer than you, and in a few more places. What makes you think you can come in here messing with me anyhow?" He turned, looking straight into my face now, challenging me. He was very game and I wanted to laugh. "Oh, take it easy," I growled. "A man can ask a question, can't he? You got your answer," he said, turning completely around on the stool. "So now I guess you ready to pull your knife." "Knife?" I said, wanting to laugh. "Who said anything about a knife? That's what you thinking about. Somebody say something you don't like and you kind of fellows pull your switchblades. So alright, go ahead and pull it. I'm as ready to die as I'm gonna never be. Let's see you, go ahead." He reached for the sugar shaker now, and I stood there feeling suddenly that the old man before me was not Brother Machio at all, but someone else disguised to confuse me. The glasses were working too well. He's a game old brother, I thought, but this'll never do. I pointed toward his plate. "I asked you about the ribs," I said, "not your ribs. Who said anything about a knife?" "Never mind that, just go on and pull it," he said. "Let's see you. Or is you waiting for me to turn my back?" "All right, here it is, here's my back," he said, turning swiftly on the stool and around again, his arms set to throw the shaker. Customers were turning to look, were moving clear. "What's the matter, Machio?" someone said. "Nothing, I can't handle this confidencing son of a bitch come in here bluffing. You take it easy, old man," I said. "Don't let your mouth get your head in trouble, thinking, why am I talking like this? You don't have to worry about that, son of a bitch, pull your switchblade. Give it to him, Machio, cool crack the motherfouler." I marked the position of the voice by ear now, turning so that I could see Machio, the agitator, and the customers blocking the door. Even the jukebox had stopped and I could feel the danger mounting so swiftly that I moved without thinking, bounding over quickly and sweeping up a beer bottle, my body trembling. "All right," I said, "if that's the way you want it, all right." The next one who talks out of turn gets this. Mashio moved and I fainted with the bottle, seeing him dodge, his arm set to throw and held only because I was crowding him, a dark old man in overalls and a grey long-billed cloth cap, who looked dreamlike through the green glasses. "Throw it," I said. "Go on, overcome with the madness of the thing." Here I'd set out to test a disguise on a friend and now I was ready to beat him to his knees, not because I wanted to but because of place and circumstance. Okay, it was absurd and yet real and dangerous, and if he moved, I'd let him have it as brutally as possible. To protect myself I'd have to, or the drunks would gang me. Mashio was set, looking at me coldly, and suddenly I heard a voice boom out, "Ain't going to be no fighting in my joint." It was Barrel House. "Put them things down y'all, they cost money." "Hell, Barrel House, let 'em fight. They can fight in the streets, not in here. Hey, y'all," he called, "look over here." I saw him now, leaning forward with a pistol in his huge fist, resting it steady upon the bar. "Now put 'em down y'all," he said mournfully. "I done ask you to put my property down." Brother Mashio looked from me to Barrel House. "Put it down, old man," I said, thinking, why am I acting from pride when this is not really me? "You put 'em down," he said. "Both of y'all put 'em down, and you, Reinhardt," Barrel House said, gesturing at me with his pistol, "you get out of my joint and stay out. We don't need your money in here." I started to protest, but he held up his palm. "Now you all right with me, Reinhardt, don't get me wrong. But I just can't stand trouble," Barrel House said. Brother Mashio had replaced the shaker now and I put my bottle down and back to the door. "And Ryan," Barrel House said, "don't go try to pull no pistol neither, 'cause this here one is loaded and I got a permit." I backed to the door, my scalp prickling, watching them both. "Next time don't ask no questions you don't want answered," Mashio called. "And if you ever want to finish this argument I be right here." I felt the outside air explode around me and I stood just beyond the door laughing with the sudden relief of the joke restored, looking back at the defiant old man in his long-billed cap and the confounded eyes of the crowd. Reinhardt, I thought, what kind of man is Reinhardt? I was still chuckling when, in the next block, I waited for the traffic lights near a group of men who stood on the corner passing a bottle of cheap wine between them as they discussed Clifton's murder. "What we need is some guns," one of them said. "An eye for an eye." "Hell yes, machine guns." "Pass me the Sneaky Pete, McElroy." "Wasn't for that Sullivan law this here New York wouldn't be nothing but a shooting gallery," another man said. "Here's the Sneaky Pete, and don't try to find no home in that bottle." "It's the only home I got, McElroy." "You want to take that away from me? Man, drink up and pass the damn bottle." I started around them, hearing one of them say, "What you saying, Mr. Reinhardt, how's your hammer hanging?" "Even up here," I thought, beginning to hurry. "Heavy, man," I said, knowing the answer to that one, "very heavy." They laughed. "Well, it'll be lighter by morning. Say, look, Mr. Reinhardt, how about giving me a job?" One of them said, approaching me, and I waved and crossed the street, walking rapidly down 8th toward the next bus stop. The shops and groceries were dark now, and children were running and yelling along the walks, dodging in and out among the adults. I walked, struck by the merging fluidity of forms seen through the lenses. Could this be the way the world appeared to Reinhardt? All the dark glass boys? For now we see as through a glass darkly, but then, I couldn't remember the rest. She was carrying a shopping bag and moved gingerly on her feet. Until she touched my arm I thought that she was talking to herself. "I say, pardon me, son, look like you trying to pass on by me tonight. What's the final figure?" "Figure? What figure?" "Now you know what I mean," she said, her voice rising as she put her hands on her hips and looked forward. "I mean today's last number. Ain't you Ryan the runner?" "Ryan the runner?" "Yas, Reinhardt the number man." "Who you trying to fool?" "But that's not my name, madam," I said, speaking as precisely as I could and stepping away from her. "You've made a mistake." Her mouth fell wide. "You ain't? Well, why you look so much like him," she said with hot doubt in her voice. "Now, ain't this here something? Let me get on home. If my dream come out, I may have to go look that rascal up. And here I needs that money too." "I hope you won," I said, straining to see her clearly, "and I hope he pays off." "Thanks, son, but he'll pay off all right. I can see you ain't Reinhardt now though. I'm sorry for stopping you." "It's all right," I said. "If I looked at your shoes I woulda known." "Why?" "'Cause Ryan the runner is known for them knob-toed kind." I watched her limp away, rocking like the old ship of Zion. No wonder everyone knows him, I thought, in that racket you have to get around. I was aware of my black and white shoes for the first time since the day of Clifton's shooting. When the squad car veered close to the curb and rolled along slowly beside me, I knew what was coming before the cop opened his mouth. "That you, Reinhardt, my man?" The cop who was not driving said. He was white. I could see the shield gleaming on his cap, but the number was vague. "Not this time, officer," I said. "The hell you say? What are you trying to pull? Is this a holdout?" "You're making a mistake," I said. "I'm not Reinhardt." The car stopped, a flashlight beamed in my green lens ties. He spat into the street. "Well, you better be by morning," he said, "and you better have our cut in the regular place." "Who the hell you think you are?" he called as the car speeded up and away. And before I could turn, a crowd of men ran up from the corner pool hall. One of them carried an automatic in his hand. "What were those son savages trying to do to you, Daddy?" he said. "It was nothing, they thought I was someone else." "Who'd they take you for?" I looked at them. Were they criminals or simply men who were worked up over the shooting? "Some guy named Reinhardt," I said. "Reinhardt, hey, y'all hear that?" snorted the fellow with the gun. "Reinhardt. Them patties must be going stone blind. Anybody can see you ain't Reinhardt." "But he do look like Ryan," another man said, staring at me with his hands in his trousers pockets. "Like hell he does. Hell, man, Reinhardt would be driving that Cadillac this time of night." "What the hell you talking about?" "Listen, Jack," the fellow with the gun said, "don't let nobody make you act like Reinhardt. You got to have a smooth tongue, a heartless heart, and be ready to do anything. But if them patties bother you again, just let us know. We aim to stop some of this headwing they've been doing." "Sure," I said. "Reinhardt," he said again. "Ain't that a bitch?" They turned and went arguing back to the pool hall, and I hurried out of the neighborhood. Having forgotten Hambro for the moment, I walked east instead of west. I wanted to remove the glasses but decided against it. Rass's men might still be on the prowl. It was quieter now. No one paid me any special attention, although the street was alive with pedestrians, all moiling along in the mysterious tint of green. Perhaps I'm out of his territory at last, I thought, and began trying to place Reinhardt in the scheme of things. He's been around all the while, but I have been looking in another direction. He was around and others like him, but I had looked past him until Clifton's death, or was it Rass? Had made me aware. What on earth was hiding behind the face of things? If dark glasses and a white hat could blot out my identity so quickly, who actually was who? The perfume was exotic and seemed to roll up the walk behind me as I became aware of a woman strolling casually behind me. "I've been waiting for you to recognize me, Daddy," a voice said. "I've been waiting for you a long time." It was a pleasant voice with a slightly husky edge and plenty of sleep in it. "Don't you hear me, Daddy?" she said. And I started to look around, hearing, "No, Daddy, don't look back, my old man might be cold trailing me. Just walk along beside me while I tell you where to meet me. I swear I thought you'd never come. Will you be able to see me tonight?" She had moved close to me now, and suddenly I felt a hand fumbling at my jacket pocket. "All right, Daddy, you don't have to jump evil on me, here it is, now will you see me?" I stopped dead, grabbing her hand and looking at her, An exotic girl even through the green glasses, looking at me with a smile that suddenly broke. Reinhardt, Daddy, what's the matter? So here it goes again, I thought, holding her tightly. I'm not Reinhardt, miss, I said. And for the first time tonight I'm truly sorry. But bliss, Daddy, Reinhardt. You're not trying to put your baby down, Daddy, what did I do? She seized my arm and we were poised face to face in the middle of the walk. And suddenly she screamed, "Oh, you really aren't. And me trying to give you his money. Get away from me, you dumb John. Get away from me." I backed off. Her face was distorted as she stamped her high heels and screamed. Behind me I heard someone say, "Hey, what was that?" Followed by the sound of running feet as I shot off and around the corner away from her screams. That lovely girl, I thought, that lovely girl. Several blocks away I stopped, out of breath. And both pleased and angry. How stupid could people be? Was everyone suddenly nuts? I looked about me. It was a bright street, the walks full of people. I stood at the curb trying to breathe. Up the street a sign with a cross glowed above the walk, "Holy Way Station Behold the Living God." The letters glowed dark green and I wondered if it were from the lenses or the actual color of the neon tubes. A couple of drunks stumbled past. I headed for Hambros, passing a man sitting on the curb with his head bent over his knees. Cars passed. I went on. Two solemn-faced children came passing out handbills which first I refused, then went back and took. After all, I had to know what was going on in the community. I took the bill and stepped close to the street light, reading. "Behold the invisible, thy will be done, O Lord. I see all, know all. Tell all, cure all. You shall see the unknown wonders." Rev. B. P. Reinhardt, spiritual technologist. The old is ever new way stations in New Orleans, the home of mystery, Birmingham, New York, Chicago, Detroit and LA. No problem too hard for God. Come to the way station. Behold the invisible. Attend our services, prayer meetings thrice weekly. Join us in the new revelation of the old-time religion. Behold the seen unseen. Behold the invisible. Ye who are weary, come home. I do what you want done. Don't wait. I dropped the leaflet into the gutter and moved on. I walked slowly, my breath still coming hard. Could it be? Soon I reached the sign. It hung above a store that had been converted into a church, and I stepped into the shallow lobby and wiped my face with a handkerchief. Behind me I heard the rise and fall of an old-fashioned prayer such as I hadn't heard since leaving the campus, and then only when visiting country preachers were asked to pray. The voice rose and fell in a rhythmical, dreamlike recital, part enumeration of earthly trials undergone by the congregation, part rapt display of vocal virtuosity, part appeal to God. I was still wiping my face and squinting at crude biblical scenes painted on the windows when two old ladies came up to me. "Even, Reverend Reinhardt," one of them said. "How's our dear pastor this warm evening?" Oh, no, I thought, but perhaps agreeing will cause less trouble than denying, and I said, "Good evening, sisters," muffling my voice with my handkerchief and catching the odor of the girl's perfume from my hand. "This here's Sister Harris, Reverend. She come to join our little band." "God bless you, Sister Harris," I said, taking her extended hand. "You know, Reverend, I once heard you preach years ago. You was just a little late 12-year-old boy, back in Virginia, and here I come north and find you, praise God, still preaching the gospel, doing the Lord's work. Still preaching the old-time religion here in this wicked city." Sister Harris," the other sister said, "we better get on in and find our seats. Besides, the pastor's kind of got things to do. Though you are here a little early, aren't you, Reverend?" "Yes," I said, dabbing my mouth with my handkerchief. They were motherly old women of the southern type and I suddenly felt a nameless despair. I wanted to tell them that Reinhardt was a fraud, but now there came a shout from inside the church and I heard a burst of music. "Just listen to it, Sister Harris. That's the new kind of guitar music I told you Reverend Reinhardt got for us. Ain't it heavenly? Praise God, Sister Harris said. Praise God. Excuse us, Reverend, I have to see Sister Judkins about the money she collected for the building fund. And, Reverend, last night I sold 10 recordings of your inspiring sermon. Even sold one to the white lady I work for. Bless you, I found myself saying in a voice heavy with despair, bless you, bless you. Then the door opened and I looked past their heads into a small crowded room of men and women sitting in folding chairs, to the front where a slender woman in a rusty black robe played passionate boogie-woogie on an upright piano along with a young man wearing a skull cap who struck righteous riffs from an electric guitar which was connected to an amplifier that hung from the ceiling above a gleaming white and gold pulpit. A man in an elegant red cardinal's robe and a high lace collar stood resting against an enormous Bible and now began to lead a hard-driving hymn which the congregation shouted in the unknown tongue. And back and high on the wall above him there arched the words in letters of gold, "Let there be light." The whole scene quivered vague and mysterious in the green light, then the door closed and the sound muted down. It was too much for me. I removed my glasses and tucked the white hat carefully beneath my arm and walked away. Can it be, I thought, can it actually be? And I knew that it was. I had heard of it before but I'd never come so close. Still, could he be all of them, Rhine the runner and Rhine the gambler and Rhine the briber and Rhine the lover and Reinhardt the reverend? Could he himself be both Rhine and Hart? What is real anyway? But how could I doubt it? He was a broad man. A man of parts who got around. Reinhardt the rounder. It was true as I was true. His world was possibility and he knew it. He was years ahead of me and I was a fool. I must have been crazy and blind. The world in which we lived was without boundaries. A vast seething, hot world of fluidity, and Rhine the rascal was at home. Perhaps only Rhine the rascal was at home in it. It was unbelievable. But perhaps only the unbelievable could be believed. Perhaps the truth was always a lie. Perhaps, I thought, the whole thing should roll off me like drops of water rolling off Jack's glass eye. I should search out the proper political classification, label Reinhardt and his situation and quickly forget it. I hurried away from the church so swiftly that I found myself back at the office before I remembered that I was going to Hambro's. I was both depressed and fascinated. I wanted to know Reinhardt and yet, I thought, I'm upset because I know I don't have to know him, that simply becoming aware of his existence, being mistaken for him, is enough to convince me that Reinhardt is real. It couldn't be, but it is. And it can be, is, simply because it's unknown. Jack wouldn't dream of such a possibility, nor Tobit, who thinks he's so close. Too little was known. Too much was in the dark. I thought of Clifton and of Jack himself. How much was really known about either of them? How much was known about me? Who from my old life had challenged me? And after all this time I had just discovered Jack's missing guy. My entire body started to itch, as though I had just been removed from a plaster cast and was unused to the new freedom of movement. In the South everyone knew you, but coming north was a jump into the unknown. How many days could you walk the streets of the big city without encountering anyone who knew you, and how many nights? You could actually make yourself anew. The notion was frightening, for now the world seemed to flow before my eyes. All boundaries down, freedom was not only the recognition of necessity, it was the recognition of possibility. And sitting there trembling I caught a brief glimpse of the possibilities posed by Reinhardt's multiple personalities and turned away. It was too vast and confusing to contemplate. Then I looked at the polished lenses of the glasses and laughed. I had been trying simply to turn them into a disguise but they had become a political instrument instead, for if Reinhardt could use them in his work, no doubt I could use them in mine. It was too simple, and yet they had already opened up a new section of reality for me. What would the committee say about that? What did their theory tell them of such a world? I recalled a report of a shoeshine boy who had encountered the best treatment in the South simply by wearing a white turban instead of his usual Dobbs or Stetson, and I fell into a fit of laughing. Jack would be outraged at the very suggestion of such a state of things. And yet there was truth in it, This was the real chaos which he thought he was describing, so long ago it seemed now. Outside the Brotherhood we were outside history, but inside of it they didn't see us. It was a hell of a state of affairs, we were nowhere. I wanted to back away from it, but still I wanted to discuss it, to consult someone who'd tell me it was only a brief, emotional illusion. I wanted the props put back beneath the world. So now I had a real need to see Hambro. Getting up to go, I looked at the wall map and laughed at Columbus. What an India he'd found! I was almost across the hall when I remembered and came back and put on the hat and glasses. I'd need them to carry me through the streets. I took a cab. Hambro lived in the West Hades, and once in the vestibule I tucked the hat under my arm and put the glasses in my pocket along with Brother Tarp's leg chain and Clifton's doll. My pocket was getting overloaded. I was shown into a small, book-lined study by Hambro himself. From another part of the apartment came a child's voice singing Humpty Dumpty, awakening humiliating memories of my first Easter program during which I had stood before the church audience and forgotten the words. "My kid," Hambro said, filibustering against going to bed. "A real sea lawyer, that kid." The child was singing Hickory Dickory Dock, very fast, as Hambro shut the door. He was saying something about the child and I looked at him with sudden irritation. With Reinhardt on my mind, why had I come here? Hambro was so tall that when he crossed his legs both feet touched the floor. He had been my teacher during my period of indoctrination and now I realized that I shouldn't have come. Hambro's lawyer's mind was too narrowly logical. He'd see Reinhardt simply as a criminal, my obsession as a fall into pure mysticism. You'd better hope that is the way he'll see it, I thought. Then I decided to ask him about conditions uptown and leave. "Look, Brother Hambro," I said, "what's to be done about my district?" He looked at me with a dry smile. "Have I become one of those bores who talk too much about their children?" "Oh, no, it's not that," I said. "I've had a hard day. I'm nervous. With Clifton's death and things in the district so bad, I guess." "Of course," he said, still smiling. "But why are you worried about the district?" "Because things are getting out of hand. Rass's men tried to rough me up tonight and our strength is steadily going to hell." "That's regrettable," he said, "but there's nothing to be done about it that wouldn't upset the larger plan." "It's unfortunate, brother, but your members will have to be sacrificed." The distant child had stopped singing now, and it was dead quiet. I looked at the angular composure on his face, searching for the sincerity in his words. I could feel some deep change. It was as though my discovery of Reinhardt had opened a gulf between us over which, though we sat within touching distance, our voices barely carried and then fell flat, without an echo. I tried to shake it away, but still the distance, so great that neither could grasp the emotional tone of the other, remained. "Sacrifice," my voice said. "You say that very easily. Just the same, though, all who leave must be considered expendable. The new directives must be followed rigidly." It sounded unreal, an antiphonal game. "But why?" I said. "Why must the directives be changed in my district when the old methods are needed, especially now?" Somehow I couldn't get the needed urgency into my words, and beneath it all something about Reinhardt bothered me, darted just beneath the surface of my mind, something that had to do with me intimately. "It's simple, brother," Hambro was saying. "We are making temporary alliances with other political groups and the interests of one group of brothers must be sacrificed to that the whole." "Why wasn't I told of this?" I said. "You will be, in time, by the committee. Sacrifice is necessary now, but shouldn't sacrifice be made willingly by those who know what they are doing? My people don't understand why they're being sacrificed. They don't even know they're being sacrificed, at least not by us." "But what," my mind went on, "if they're as willing to be duped by the Brotherhood as by Reinhardt?" I sat up at the thought and there must have been an odd expression on my face, for Hambro, who was resting his elbows upon the arms of his chair and touching his fingertips together, raised his eyebrows as though expecting me to continue. Then he said, "The disciplined members will understand." I pulled Tarp's leg chain from my pocket and slipped it over my knuckles. He didn't notice. Don't you realize that we have only a handful of disciplined members left? Today the funeral brought out hundreds who'll drop away as soon as they see we're not following through, and now we're being attacked on the streets. Can't you understand? Other groups are circulating petitions. RAS is calling for violence. The committee is mistaken if they think this is going to die down. He shrugged. It's a risk which we must take. All of us must sacrifice for the good of the whole. Change is achieved through sacrifice. We follow the laws of reality, so we make sacrifices. But the community is demanding equality of sacrifice, I said. We've never asked for special treatment. It isn't that simple, brother, he said. We have to protect our gains. It's inevitable that some must make greater sacrifices than others. That some being my people. In this instance, yes. So the weak must sacrifice for the strong? Is that it, brother? No, a part of the whole is sacrificed, and will continue to be until a new society is formed. I don't get it, I said. I just don't get it. We work our hearts out trying to get the people to follow us, and just when they do, just when they see their relationship to events, we drop them. I don't see it. Hambro smiled remotely. We don't have to worry about the aggressiveness of the Negroes. Not during the new period or any other. In fact, we now have to slow them down for their own good. It's a scientific necessity. I looked at him, at the long, bony, almost Lincoln-esque face. I might have liked him, I thought. He seems to be a really kind and sincere man, and yet he can say this to me. So you really believe that, I said quietly. With all my integrity, he said. For a second I thought I'd laugh. Or let fly with Tarp's link. Integrity. He talks to me of integrity. I described a circle in the air. I'd tried to build my integrity upon the role of brotherhood, and now it had changed to water, air. What was integrity? What did it have to do with a world in which Reinhardt was possible and successful? But what's changed? I said. Wasn't I brought in to arouse their aggressiveness? My voice fell sad, hopeless. For that particular period, Hambro said, leaning a little forward. Only for that period. And what will happen now? I said. He blew a smoke ring, the blue-gray circle rising up, boiling within its own jetting form, hovering for an instant, then disintegrating into a weaving strand. Cheer up. He said. We shall progress. Only now they must be brought along more slowly. How would he look through the green lenses? I thought, saying, are you sure you're not saying that they must be held back? He chuckled. Now, listen, he said. Don't stretch me on a rack of dialectic. I'm a brother. You mean the brakes must be put on the old wheel of history, I said. Or is it the little wheels within the wheel? His face sobered. I mean only that they must be brought along more slowly. They can't be allowed to upset the tempo of the master plan. Timing is all important. Besides, you still have a job to do, only now it will be more educational. And what about the shooting? Those who are dissatisfied will drop away, and those who remain you'll teach. I don't think I can, I said. Why? It's just as important. Because they are against us. Besides, I'd feel like Reinhardt. It slipped out and he looked at me. Like who? Like a charlatan, I said. Hambro laughed. I thought you had learned about that, brother. I looted at him quickly. Learned what? That it's impossible not to take advantage of the people. That's Reinhardtism, cynicism. What? Cynicism, I said. Not cynicism, realism. The trick is to take advantage of them in their own best interest. I sat forward in my chair, suddenly conscious of the unreality of the conversation. But who is to judge? Jack? The committee? We judge through cultivating scientific objectivity, he said with a voice that had a smile in it, and suddenly I saw the hospital machine, felt as though locked in again. Don't kid yourself, I said. The only scientific objectivity is a machine. Discipline, not machinery, he said. We're scientists. We must take the risks of our science and our will to achieve. Would you like to resurrect God to take responsibility? He shook his head. No, brother, we have to make such decisions ourselves. Even if we must sometimes appear as charlatans. You're in for some surprises, I said. Maybe so and maybe not, he said. At any rate, through our very position in the vanguard we must do and say the things necessary to get the greatest number of the people to move toward what is for their own good. Suddenly I couldn't stand it. Look at me. Look at me. I said. Everywhere I've turned somebody has wanted to sacrifice me for my good, only they were the ones who benefited. And now we start on the old sacrificial merry-go-round. At what point do we stop? Is this the new true definition? Is brotherhood a matter of sacrificing the weak? If so, at what point do we stop? Hambro looked as though I were not there. At the proper moment science will stop us. And of course we as individuals must sympathetically debunk ourselves. Even though it does only a little good. But then, he shrugged, if you go too far in that direction you can't pretend to lead. You'll lose your confidence. You won't believe enough in your own correctness to lead others. You must therefore have confidence in those who lead you, in the collective wisdom of brotherhood. I left in a worse state than that in which I'd come. Several buildings away I heard him call behind me, watched him approach through the dark. You left your hat, he said, handing it to me along with the mimeographed sheets of instructions outlining the new program. I looked at the hat and at him, thinking of Reinhardt and invisibility, but knew that for him it would have no reality. I told him good night and went through the hot street to Central Park West, starting toward Harlem. Sacrifice and leadership, I thought. For him it was simple. For them it was simple. But hell, I was both. Both sacrificer and victim. I couldn't get away from that, and Hambro didn't have to deal with it. That was reality too, my reality. He didn't have to put the knife blade to his own throat. What would he say if he were the victim? I walked along the park in the dark. Cars passed. From time to time the sound of voices, squealing laughter, arose from beyond the trees and hedges. I could smell the sun-singed grass. The sky against which an airplane beacon played was still overcast. I thought of Jack, the people at the funeral, Reinhardt. They'd asked us for bread and the best I could give was a glass eye, not so much as an electric guitar. I stopped and dropped to a bench. I should leave, I thought. That would be the honest thing to do. Otherwise I could only tell them to have hope and try to hold on to those who'd listen. Was that also what Reinhardt was, a principle of hope for which they gladly paid? Otherwise there was nothing but betrayal, and that meant going back to serve Bledsoe and Emerson, jumping from the pot of absurdity to the fire of the ridiculous. And either was a self-betrayal. But I couldn't leave, I had to settle with Jack and Dobbett. I owed it to Clifton and Tarp and the others. I had to hold on, and then I had an idea that shook me profoundly. You don't have to worry about the people. If they tolerate Reinhardt, then they will forget it, and even with them you are invisible. It lasted only the fraction of a second and I rejected it immediately, still it had flashed across the dark sky of my mind. It was just like that. It didn't matter because they didn't realize just what had happened, neither my hope nor my failure. My ambition and integrity were nothing to them and my failure was as meaningless as Clifton's. It had been that way all along. Only in the Brotherhood had there seemed a chance for such as us, the mere glimmer of a light, but behind the polished and humane the of Jack's I'd found an amorphous form and a harsh red rawness. And even that was without meaning except for me. Well, I was and yet I was invisible, that was the fundamental contradiction. I was and yet I was unseen. It was frightening, and as I sat there I sensed another frightening world of possibilities. For now I saw that I could agree with Jack without agreeing. And I could tell Harlem to have hope when there was no hope. Perhaps I could tell them to hope until I found the basis of something real, some firm ground for action that would lead them onto the plane of history. But until then I would have to move them without myself being moved. I'd have to do a Reinhardt. I leaned against a stone wall along the park, thinking of Jack and Hambro and of the day's events, and shook with rage. It was all a swindle, an obscene swindle. They had set themselves up to describe the world. What did they know of us, except that we numbered so many, worked on certain jobs, offered so many votes, and provided so many marchers for some protest parade of theirs? I leaned there, aching to humiliate them, to refute them. And now all past humiliations became precious parts of my experience, and for the first time, leaning against that stone wall in the sweltering night, I began to accept my past and, as I accepted it, I felt memories welling up within me. It was as though I'd learned suddenly to look around corners. Images of past humiliations flickered through my head and I saw that they were more than separate experiences. They were me, they defined me. I was my experiences and my experiences were me, and no blind men, no matter how powerful they became, even if they conquered the world, could take that, or change one single itch, taunt, laugh, cry, scar, ache, rage or pain of it. They were blind, bat blind, moving only by the echoed sounds of their own voices. And because they were blind they would destroy themselves and I'd help them. I laughed. Here I had thought they accepted me because they felt that color made no difference, when in reality it made no difference because they didn't see either color or men. For all they were concerned, we were so many names scribbled on fake ballots, to be used at their convenience and when not needed to be filed away. It was a joke, an absurd joke. And now I looked around a corner of my mind and saw Jack and Norton and Emerson merge into one single white figure. They were very much the same, each attempting to force his picture of reality upon me and neither giving a hoot in hell for how things looked to me. I was simply a material, a natural resource to be used. I had switched from the arrogant absurdity of Norton and Emerson to that of Jack and the Brotherhood, and it all came out the same, except I now recognized my invisibility. So I'd accept it, I'd explore it, Rhine and heart. I'd plunge into it with both feet and they'd gag. Oh, but wouldn't they gag? I didn't know what my grandfather had meant, but I was ready to test his advice. I'd overcome them with yeses, undermine them with grins, I'd agree them to death and destruction. Yes, and I'd let them swallow me until they vomited or burst wide open. Let them gag on what they refused to see. Let them choke on it. That was one risk they hadn't calculated. That was a risk they had never dreamt of in their philosophy. Nor did they know that they could discipline themselves to destruction, that saying yes could destroy them. Oh, I'd yes them, but wouldn't I yes them? I'd yes them till they puked and rolled in it. All they wanted of me was one belch of affirmation and I'd bellow it out loud. Yes, yes. Yes. That was all anyone wanted of us, that we should be heard and not seen. And then heard only in one big optimistic chorus of yassa, yassa, yassa. All right, I'd yay, yay and we and see and see them too, and I'd walk around in their guts with hobnailed boots. Even those super big shots whom I'd never seen at committee meetings. They wanted a machine? Very well, I'd become a super sensitive confirmer of their misconceptions. And just to hold their confidence I'd try to be right part of the time. Oh, I'd serve them well and I'd make invisibility felt if not seen, and they'd learn that it could be as polluting as a decaying body, or a piece of bad meat in a stew. And if I got hurt? Very well again. Besides, didn't they believe in sacrifice? They were the subtle thinkers. Would this be treachery? Did the word apply to an invisible man? Could they recognize choice in that which wasn't seen? The more I thought of it the more I fell into a kind of morbid fascination with the possibility. Why hadn't I discovered it sooner? How different my life might have been. How terribly different. Why hadn't I seen the possibilities? If a sharecropper could attend college by working during the summers as a waiter and factory hand or as a musician and then graduate to become a doctor, why couldn't all those things be done at one and the same time? And wasn't that old slave a scientist, or at least called one, recognized as one, even when he stood with hat in hand, bowing and scraping in senile and obscene servility? My God, what possibilities existed! And that spiral business, that progress goo. Who knew all the secrets, Hadn't I changed my name and never been challenged even once? And that lie that success was a rising upward. What a crummy lie they kept us dominated by. Not only could you travel upward towards success, but you could travel downward as well, up and down, in retreat as well as in advance, crabways and crossways and around in a circle, meeting your old selves coming and going and perhaps all at the same time. How could I have missed it for so long? Hadn't I grown up around gambler politicians, bootlegger judges and sheriffs who were burglars, yes, and Klansmen who were preachers and members of humanitarian societies? Hell, and hadn't Bledsoe tried to tell me what it was all about? I felt more dead than alive. It had been quite a day, one that could not have been more shattering even if I had learned that the man whom I'd always called father was actually of no relation to me. I went to the apartment and fell across the bed in my clothes. It was hot and the fan did little more than stir the heat in heavy leaden waves, beneath which I lay whirling the dark glasses and watching the hypnotic flickering of the lenses as I tried to make plans. I would hide my anger and lull them to sleep, assure them that the community was in full agreement with their program. And as proof I would falsify the attendance records by filling out membership cards with fictitious names, all unemployed, of course, so as to avoid any question of dues. Yes, and I would move about the community by night and during times of danger by wearing the white hat and the dark glasses. It was a dreary prospect but a means of destroying them, at least in Harlem. I saw no possibility of organizing a splinter movement, for what would be the next step? Where would we go? There were no allies with whom we could join as equals, nor were there time or theorists available to work out an overall program of our own, although I felt that somewhere between Reinhardt and invisibility there were great potentialities. But we had no money, no intelligence apparatus, either in government, business or labor unions, and no communications with our own people except through unsympathetic newspapers, a few Pullman porters who brought provincial news from distant cities and a group of domestics who reported the fairly uninteresting private lives of their employers. If only we had some true friends, some who saw us as more than convenient tools for shaping their own desires. But to hell with that, I thought. I would remain and become a well-disciplined optimist, and help them to go merrily to hell. If I couldn't help them to see the reality of our lives, I would help them to ignore it until it exploded in their faces. Only one thing bothered me, since I now knew that their real objectives were never revealed at committee meetings. I needed some channel of intelligence through which I could learn what actually guided their operations. But how? If only I had resisted being shifted downtown, I would now have enough support in the community to insist that they reveal themselves. Yes, but if I hadn't been shifted, I would still be living in a world of illusion. But now that I had found the thread of reality, how could I hold on? They seemed to have me blocked at every turn, forcing me to fight them in the dark. Finally I tossed the glasses across the bed and dropped into a fitful nap, during which I relived the events of the last few days, except that instead of Clifton being lost it was myself, and I awoke stale, sweaty and aware of perfume. I lay on my stomach, my head resting upon the back of my hand, thinking, where is it coming from? And just as I caught sight of the glasses I remembered grasping Reinhardt's girl's hand. I lay there unmoving, and she seemed to perch on the bed, a bright-eyed bird with her glossy head and ripe breasts, and I was in a wood afraid to frighten the bird away. Then I was fully awake and the bird gone and the girl's image in my mind. What would have happened if I had led her on? How far could I have gone? A desirable girl like that mixed up with Reinhardt. And now I sat breathless, asking myself how Reinhardt would have solved the problem of information, and it came instantly clear. It called for a woman. A wife, a girlfriend, or secretary of one of the leaders, who would be willing to talk freely to me. My mind swept back to early experiences in the movement. Little incidents sprang to memory, bringing images of the smiles and gestures of certain women met after rallies and at parties, dancing with them at the Thonian, she close, soft against me, and a hot swift focusing of my desire and my embarrassment as I caught sight of Jack holding forth in a corner, and Emma holding me tight, her bound breasts pressing against me, looking with that teasing light in her eyes saying, "Ah, temptation," and my desperate grab for a sophisticated reply and managing only, "Oh, but there's always temptation," surprising myself nevertheless and hearing her laughing, "Touché. Touché. You should come up and fence with me some afternoon." That had been during the early days when I had felt strong restrictions and resented Emma's boldness and her opinion that I should have been blacker to play my role of Harlem leader. Well, there were no restrictions left, the committee had seen to that. She was fair game and perhaps she'd find me black enough, after all. A committee meeting was set for tomorrow, and since it was Jack's birthday, a party at the Thonian would follow. Thus I would launch my two-pronged attack under the most favorable circumstance. They were forcing me to Reinhardt methods, so bring on the scientists. Chapter 24. I started yesing them the next day and it began beautifully. The community was still going apart at the seams. Crowds formed at the slightest incidents. Store windows were smashed and several clashes erupted during the morning between bus drivers and their passengers. The papers listed similar incidents that had exploded during the night. The mirrored fa of one store on 125th Street was smashed and I passed to see a group of boys watching their distorted images as they danced before the jagged glass. A group of adults looked on, refusing to move at the policeman's command, and muttering about Clifton. I didn't like the look of things, for all my wish to see the committee confounded. When I reached the office, members were there with reports of clashes in other parts of the district. I didn't like it at all. The violence was pointless and, helped along by RAS, was actually being directed against the community itself. Yet in spite of my sense of violated responsibility I was pleased by the developments and went ahead with my plan. I sent out members to mingle with crowds and try to discourage any further violence and sent an open letter to all the press denouncing them for distorting and inflating minor incidents. Late that afternoon at headquarters I reported that things were quieting down and that we were getting a large part of the community interested in a cleanup campaign, which would clear all backyards, areaways, and vacant lots of garbage and trash and take Harlem's mind off Clifton. It was such a barefaced maneuver that I almost lost the confidence of my invisibility even as I stood before them. But they loved it, and when I handed in my fake list of new members they responded with enthusiasm. They were vindicated, the program was correct, events were progressing in their predetermined direction, history was on their side, and Harlem loved them. I sat there smiling inwardly as I listened to the remarks that followed. I could see the role which I was to play as plainly as I saw Jack's red hair. Incidents of my past, both recognized and ignored, sprang together in my mind in an ironic leap of consciousness that was like looking around a corner. I was to be a justifier, my task would be to deny the unpredictable human element of all Harlem so that they could ignore it when it in any way interfered with their plans. I was to keep ever before them the picture of the bright, passive, good-humored, receptive mass ever willing to accept their every scheme. When situations arose in which others would respond with righteous anger I would say that we were calm and unruffled. If it suited them to have us angry, then it was simple enough to create anger for us by stating it in their propaganda. The facts were unimportant, unreal, and if other people were confused by their maneuvering I was to reassure them that we pierced to the truth with X-ray insight. If other groups were interested in becoming wealthy, I was to assure the brothers and the doubting members of other districts that we rejected wealth as corrupt and intrinsically degrading. If other minorities loved the country despite their grievances, I would assure the committee that we, immune to such absurdly human and mixed reactions, hated it absolutely, and, greatest contradiction of all, when they denounced the American scene as corrupt and degenerate, I was to say that we, though snarled inextricably within its veins and sinews, were miraculously healthy. Yes you. Though invisible I would be their assuring voice of denial. I'd out Tobit, and as for that outhouse restroom, well. As I sat there one of them was inflating my faked memberships into meanings of national significance. An illusion was creating a counter-illusion. Where would it end? Did they believe their own propaganda? Afterwards at the Thonian it was like old times. Jack's birthday was an occasion for champagne, and the hot dog day evening was even more volatile than usual. I felt highly confident, but here my plan went slightly wrong. Emma was quite gay and responsive, but something about her hard, handsome face warned me to lay off. I sensed that while she might willingly surrender herself, in order to satisfy herself, she was far too sophisticated and skilled in intrigue to compromise her position as Jack's mistress by revealing anything important to me. So as I danced and sparred with Emma, I looked over the party for a second choice. We were thrown together at the bar. Her name was Sybil, and she was one of those who assumed that my lectures on the woman question were based upon a more intimate knowledge than the merely political, and had indicated several times a willingness to know me better. I had always pretended not to understand, for not only had my first such experience taught me to avoid such situations, but at the Thonian she was usually slightly tipsy and wistful, just the type of misunderstood married woman whom, even if I had been interested, I would have avoided like the plague. But now her unhappiness and the fact that she was one of the big shots' wives made her a perfect choice. She was very lonely, and it went very smoothly. In the noisy birthday party, which was to be followed by a public celebration the next evening, we weren't noticed, and when she left fairly early in the evening I saw her home. She felt neglected and he was always busy, and when I left her I had arranged a rendezvous at my apartment for the following evening. George, the husband, would be at the birthday celebration and she wouldn't be missed. It was a hot, dry August night. Lightning flashed across the eastern sky and a breathless tension was in the humid air. I had spent the afternoon preparing, leaving the office on a pretense of illness to avoid having to attend the celebration. I had neither itch nor etchings, but there was a vase of Chinese lilies in the living room, and another of American beauty roses on the table near the bed, and I had put in a supply of wine, whiskey and liqueur, extra ice cubes, and assortments of fruit, cheese, nuts, candy and other delicacies from the Vendome. In short, I tried to manage things as I imagined Reinhardt would have done. But I bungled it from the beginning. I made the drinks too strong, which she liked too well, and I brought up politics, which she all but hated, too early in the evening. For all her exposure to ideology, she had no interest in politics and no idea of the schemes that occupied her husband night and day. She was more interested in the drinks, in which I had to join her glass for glass, and in little dramas which she had dreamed up around the figures of Joe Louis and Paul Robeson. And, although I had neither the stature nor the temperament for either role, I was expected either to sing Old Man River and just keep rolling along, or to do fancy tricks with my muscles. I was confounded and amused, and it became quite a contest, with me trying to keep the two of us in touch with reality and with her casting me in fantasies in which I was Brother Taboo with whom all things are possible. Now it was late, and as I came into the room with another round of drinks she had let down her hair and was beckoning to me with a gold hairpin in her teeth, saying, "Came to Mama, beautiful," from where she sat on the bed. "Your drink, madam," I said, handing her a glass and hoping the fresh drink would discourage any new ideas. "Come on, dear," she said coyly. "I want to ask you something." "What is it?" I said. "I have to whisper it, beautiful." I sat and her lips came close to my ear. And suddenly she had drained the starch out of me. I pulled away. There was something almost prim about the way she sat there, and yet she had just made a modest proposal that I join her in a very revolting ritual. "What was that?" I said, and she repeated it. Had life suddenly become a crazy Thurber cartoon? "Please, you'll do that for me, won't you, beautiful? You really mean it?" "Yes," she said, "yes." There was a pristine incorruptibility about her face now that upset me all the more, for she was neither kidding nor trying to insult me, and I could not tell if it were horror speaking to me and of innocence, or innocence emerging unscathed from the obscene scheme of the evening. I only knew that the whole affair was a mistake. She had no information, and I decided to get her out of the apartment before I had to deal definitely with either the horror or the innocence, while I could still deal with it as a joke. What would Reinhardt do about this, I thought, and determined not to let her provoke me to violence. But, Sybil, you can see I'm not like that. You make me feel a tender, protective passion. Look, it's like an oven in here. Why don't we get dressed and go for a walk in Central Park? But I need it, she said, uncrossing her thighs and sitting up eagerly. You can do it, it'll be easy for you, beautiful. Threaten to kill me if I don't give in. You know, talk rough to me, beautiful. A friend of mine said the fellow said, drop your drawers. And, he said what? I said. He really did, she said. I looked at her. She was blushing, her cheeks, even her freckled bosom, were bright red. Go on, I said, as she lay back again. Then what happened? Well. He called her a filthy name, she said, hesitating coyly. She was a leathery old girl with chestnut hair of fine natural wave which was now fanned out over the pillow. She was blushing quite deeply. Was this meant to excite me, or was it an unconscious expression of revulsion? A really filthy name, she said. Oh, he was a brute, huge, with white teeth, what they call a buck. And he said, bitch, drop your drawers, and then he did it. She's such a lovely girl, too, really delicate with a complexion like strawberries and cream. You can't imagine anyone calling her a name like that. She sat up now, her elbows denting the pillow as she looked into my face. But what happened? Did they catch him? I said. Oh, of course not, beautiful, she only told two of us girls. She couldn't afford to let her husband hear of it. Well, it's too long a story. It's terrible, I said. Don't you think we should go? Isn't it, though? She was in a state for months. Her expression flickered, became indeterminate. What is it? I said, afraid she might cry. Oh, I was just wondering how she really felt. I really do. Suddenly she looked at me mysteriously. Can I trust you with a deep secret? I sat up. Don't tell me that it was you. She smiled. Oh, no, that was a dear friend of mine. But do you know what, beautiful, she said leaning forward confidentially, I think I'm a nymphomaniac. You? No? Uh-huh. Sometimes I have such thoughts and dreams. I never give in to them though, but I really think I am. A woman like me has to develop an iron discipline. I laughed inwardly. She would soon be a biddy, stout, with a little double chin and a three-ply girdle. A thin gold chain showed around a thickening ankle. And yet I was becoming aware of something warmly, infuriatingly feminine about her. I reached out, stroking her hand. Why do you have such ideas about yourself? I said, seeing her raise up and pluck at the corner of the pillow, drawing out a speckled feather and stripping the down from its shaft. Repression, she said with great sophistication. Men have repressed us too much. We're expected to pass up too many human things. But do you know another secret? I bowed my head. You don't mind my going on, do you, beautiful? No, Sybil. Well, ever since I first heard about it, even when I was a very little girl, I've wanted it to happen to me. You mean what happened to your friend? Uh-huh. Good Lord, Sybil, did you ever tell that to anyone else? Of course not, I wouldn't have dared. Are you shocked? Some. But Sybil, why do you tell me? Oh, I know that I can trust you. I just knew you'd understand, you're not like other men. We're kind of alike. She was smiling now and reached out and pushed me gently, and I thought, here it goes again. Lie back and let me look at you against that white sheet. You're beautiful, I've always thought so. Like warm ebony against pure snow, see what you do, you make me talk poetry. Warm ebony against pure snow, isn't that poetic? I'm the sensitive type, you mustn't make fun of me. But really you are, and I feel so free with you. You've no idea. I looked at the red imprint left by the straps of her bra, thinking, who's taking revenge on whom? But why be surprised, when that's what they hear all their lives? When it's made into a great power and they're taught to worship all types of power. With all the warnings against it, some are bound to want to try it out for themselves. The conquerors conquered. Maybe a great number secretly want it, maybe that's why they scream when it's farthest from possibility. That's it, she said tightly. Look at me like that, just like you want to tear me apart. I love for you to look at me like that. I laughed and touched her chin. She had me on the ropes. I felt punch drunk. I couldn't deliver and I couldn't be angry either. I thought of lecturing her on the respect due one's bedmate in our society, but I no longer deluded myself that I either knew the society or where I fitted into it. Besides, I thought, she thinks you're an entertainer. That's something else they're taught. I raised my glass and she joined me in a drink, moving close. You will, won't you, beautiful? She said, her lips, raw looking now without makeup, pouting babyishly. So why not entertain her, be a gentleman, or whatever it is she thinks you are? What does she think you are? A domesticated rapist, obviously, an expert on the woman question. Maybe that's what you are, housebroken and with a convenient verbal push-button arrangement for the lady's pleasure. Well, so I had set this trap for myself. Take this, I said, shoving another glass into her hand. It'll be better after you've had a drink, more realistic. Oh, yes, that'll be wonderful. She took a drink and looked up thoughtfully. I get so tired of living the way I do, beautiful. Soon I'll be old and nothing will have happened to me. Do you know what that means? George talks a lot about women's rights, but what does he know about what a woman needs? Him with his 40 minutes of brag and 10 of bustle. Oh, you have no idea what you're doing for me. Nor you for me, Sybil dear, I said, filling the glass again. At last my drinks were beginning to work. She shook her long hair out over her shoulders and crossed her knees, watching me. Her head had begun to weave. Don't drink too much, beautiful, she said. It always takes the pep out of George. Don't worry, I said. I rapes real good when I'm drunk. She looked startled. Oh, ooh, then pour me another, she said, giving herself a bounce. She was as delighted as a child, holding out her glass eagerly. What's happening here? I said, a new birth of a nation. What did you say, beautiful? Nothing, a bad joke. Forget it. That's what I like about you, beautiful. You haven't told me a single one of those vulgar jokes. Come on, beautiful, she said, pour. I poured her another and another. In fact, I poured us both quite a few. I was far away, it wasn't happening to me or to her, and I felt a certain confused pity which I didn't wish to feel. Then she looked at me, her eyes bright behind narrowed lids, and raised up and struck me where it hurt. Come on, beat me, Daddy, you big black bruiser. What's taking you so long? She said. Hurry up, knock me down. Don't you want me? I was annoyed enough to slap her. She lay aggressively receptive, flushed, her navel no goblet but a pit in an earthquaking land, flexing taut and expansive. Then she said, come on, come on. And I said, sure, sure, looking around wildly and starting to pour the drink upon her, and was stopped, my emotions locked, as I saw her lipstick lying on the table and grabbed it, saying, yes, yes, as I bent to write furiously across her belly in drunken inspiration, Sybil, you were raped by Santa Claus. Surprise, and paused there, trembling above her, my knees on the bed as she waited with unsteady expectancy. It was a purplish metallic shade of lipstick, and as she panted with anticipation the letters stretched and quivered, uphill and down dale, and she was lit up like a luminescent sign. Hurry, beautiful, hurry, she said. I looked at her, thinking, just wait until George sees that, if George ever gets around to seeing that. He'll read a lecture on an aspect of the woman question he's never thought about. She lay anonymous beneath my eyes until I saw her face, shaped by her emotion which I could not fulfill, and I thought, poor Sybil, she picked a boy for a man's job and nothing was as it was supposed to be. Even the black bruiser fell down on the job. She'd lost control of her liquor now, and suddenly I bent and kissed her upon the lips. Shhh, be quiet, I said, that's no way to act when you're being And she raised her lips for more and I kissed her again and calmed her and she dozed off and I decided again to end the farce. Such games were for Reinhardt, not me. I stumbled out and got a damp towel and began rubbing out the evidence of my crime. It was as tenacious as sin and it took some time. Water wouldn't do it, whiskey would have smelled and finally I had to find benzene. Fortunately she didn't arouse until I was almost finished. "You do it, Boofle?" she said. "Yes, of course," I said. "Isn't that what you wanted?" "Yes, but I don't seem to remember." I looked at her and wanted to laugh. She was trying to see me but her eyes wouldn't focus and her head kept swinging to one side, yet she was making a real effort, and suddenly I felt lighthearted. "By the way," I said, trying to do something with her hair, "what's your name, lady?" "It's Sybil," she said indignantly, almost tearfully. "Boofle, you know I'm Sybil." "Not when I grabbed you, I didn't." Her eyes widened and a smile wobbled across her face. "That's right, you couldn't, could you? You never saw me before." She was delighted, I could almost see the idea take form in her mind. "That's right," I said. I leaped straight out of the wall. "I overpowered you in the empty lobby, remember? I smothered your terrified screams. Did I put up a good fight? Like a lioness defending her young? But you were such a strong big brute you made me give in. I didn't want to, did I now, Boofle? You forced me against him will." "Sure," I said, picking up some silken piece of clothing. "You brought out the beast in me. I overpowered you. But what could I do?" She studied that a while and for a second her face worked again as though she would cry. But it was another smile that bloomed there. "And wasn't I a good nymphomaniac?" she said, watching me closely. "Really and truly. You have no idea," I said. "George had better keep an eye on you." She twisted herself from side to side with irritation. "Oh, nuts. That LA Georgie Porgy wouldn't know a nymphomaniac if she got right into bed with him." "You're wonderful," I said. "Tell me about George. Tell me about that great mastermind of social change." She steadied her gaze, frowning. "Who, Georgie?" she said, looking at me out of one bleary eye. "Georgie's blind some in a hole and doesn't know a thing about it. D'you ever hear of such a thing, 15 years? Say, what are you laughing at, Boofle?" "Me," I said, beginning to roar, "just me. I've never seen anyone laugh like you, Boofle. It's wonderful." I was slipping her dress over her head now and her voice came muffled through the shantung cloth. Then I had it down around her hips and her flushed face wavered through the collar, her hair down in disorder again. "Boofle," she said, blowing the word, "will you do it again sometimes?" I stepped away and looked at her. "What? Please, pretty Boofle, please," she said with a wobbly smile. I began to laugh. "Sure," I said, "sure." "When, Boofle, when?" "Any time," I said. "How about every Thursday at 9? "Oh, Boofle," she said, giving me an old-fashioned hug. "I've never seen anyone like you." "Are you sure?" I said. "Really, I haven't, Boofle. Honor bright. Believe me?" "Sure, it's good to be seen, but we've got to go now," I said, seeing her about to sag to the bed. She pouted. "I need a lil nightcap, Boofle," she said. "You've had enough?" I said. "Ah, Boofle, do one." "Okay, just one." We had another drink and I looked at her and felt the pity and self-disgust returning and was depressed. She looked at me gravely, her head to one side. "Boofle," she said, "you know what Lil Ole Sybil thinks? She thinks you're trying to get rid of her." I looked at her out of a deep emptiness and refilled her glass and mine. What had I done to her, allowed her to do? Had all of it filtered down to me? My action. The painful word formed as disconnectedly as her wobbly smile, my responsibility? All of it? I'm invisible. "Here," I said, "drink." "You too, Boofle," she said. "Yes," I said. She moved into my arms. I must have dozed. There came the tinkling of ice in a glass, the shrill of bells. I felt profoundly sad, as though winter had fallen during the hour. She lay, her chestnut hair let down, watching through heavy-lidded, blue, eye-shadowed eyes. From far away a new sound arose. "Don't answer, Buffle," she said, her voice coming through suddenly, out of time with the working of her mouth. "What?" I said. "Don't answer, let her ring," she said, reaching her red-nailed fingers forth. I took it from her hands, understanding now. "Don't, Buffle," she said. It rang again in my hand now, and for no reason at all the words of a childhood prayer spilled through my mind like swift water. Then, "Hello," I said. It was a frantic, unrecognizable voice from the district. "Brother, you better get up here right away," it said. "I'm ill," I said. "What's wrong?" "There's trouble, brother, and you're the only one who can." "What kind of trouble?" "Bad trouble, brother, they trying to." Then the harsh sound of breaking glass, distant, brittle and fine, followed by a crash, and the line went dead. "Hello," I said, seeing Sybil wavering before me, her lips saying, "Buffle." I tried to dial now, hearing the busy signal throbbing back at me, "Amen, amen, amen, amen," and I sat there a while. Was it a trick? Did they know she was with me? I put it down. Her eyes were looking at me from out of their blue shadow. Boo, and now I stood and pulled her arm. "Let's go, Sybil. They need me uptown," realizing only then that I would go. "No," she said. But yes. "Come." She fell back upon the bed defying me. I released her arms and looked around, my head unclear. What kind of trouble at this hour? Why should I go? She watched me, her eyes brightly awash in blue shadow. My heart felt low and deeply sad. "Come back, Buffle," she said. "No, let's get some air," I said. And now, avoiding the red, oily nails, I gripped her wrists and pulled her up, toward the door. We tottered, her lips brushing mine as we wavered there. She clung to me and, for an instant, I to her with a feeling immeasurably sad. Then she hiccuped and I looked vacantly back into the room. The light caught in the amber liquid of our glasses. "Buffle," she said, "life could be so different, but it never is," I said. She said, "Buffle." The fan word. And in a corner, my briefcase, covered with specks of dust like memories, the night of the battle royal. I felt her breathing hot against me and pushed her gently away, steadying her against the door frame, then went over as impulsively as the remembered prayer, and got the briefcase, brushing the dust against my leg and feeling the unexpected weight as I hugged it beneath my arm. Something clinked inside. She watched me still, her eyes alight as I took her arm. "How are you doing, Sib?" I said. "Don't go, Buffle," she said. "Let Georgie do it. No speeches tonight. Come on," I said, taking her arm quite firmly, pulling her along as she sighed, her wistful face turned toward me. We went down smoothly into the street. My head was still badly fussed from the drink, and when I looked down the huge emptiness of the dark I felt like tears. What was happening uptown? Why should I worry over bureaucrats, blind men? I am invisible. I stared down the quiet street, feeling her stumbling beside me, humming a little tune, something fresh, and carefree. "Sybil, my too late too early love." Ah! My throat throbbed. The heat of the street clung close. I looked for a taxi but none was passing. She hummed beside me, her perfume unreal in the night. We moved into the next block and still no taxis. Her high heels unsteadily scrunched the walk. I stopped her. "Poor Buffle," she said. "Don't know his name." I turned as though struck. "What?" "Anonymous brute and Buffle buck," she said, her mouth a bleary smile. I looked at her, skittering about on high heels, scrunch, scrunch on the walk. "Sybil," I said, more to myself than to her, "where will it end?" "Something told me to go." She laughed, "In bed." "Don't go up, Buffle, Sybil tuck you in." I shook my head. The stars were there, high, high, revolving. Then I closed my eyes and they sailed red behind my lids, then somewhat steadied I took her arm. "Look, Sybil," I said, Stand here a minute while I go over to Fifth for a taxi. Stand right here, dear, and hold on. We tottered before an ancient-looking building, its windows dark. Huge Greek medallions showed in spots of light upon its above a dark labyrinthine pattern in the stone, and I propped her against the stoop with its carved stone monster. She leaned there, her hair wild, looking at me in the street light, smiling. Her face kept swinging to one side, her right eye desperately closed. "Sure, Buffle, sure," she said. "I'll be right back," I said, backing away. "Buffle," she called, "my Buffle." Hear the true affection, I thought, the adoration of the boogie bear, moving away. Was she calling me beautiful or boogieful, beautiful or sublime? What did either mean? I am invisible. I went on through the late street quiet, hoping that a cab would pass before I had gone all the way. Up ahead at Fifth the lights were bright, a few cars shooting across the gaping mouth of the street, and above and beyond, the trees, great, dark, tall. What was going on, I pondered. Why call for me so late, and who? I hurried ahead, my feet unsteady. "Boo-oofle," she called behind me, "boo-oofle." I waved without looking back. Never again, no more, no more. I went on. At Fifth a cab passed and I tried to hail it, only to hear someone's voice arise, the sound floating gaily by. I looked up the lighted avenue for another, hearing suddenly the screech of brakes and turning to see the cab stop and a white arm beckoning. The cab reversed, rolled close, settling with a bounce. I laughed. It was Sybil. I stumbled forward, came to the door. She smiled out at me, her head, framed in the window, still pulling to one side, her hair waving down. "Get in, Buffle, and take me to Harlem." I shook my head, feeling it heavy and sad. "No," I said, "I've got work to do, Sybil. You'd better go home." "No, Buffle, take me with you." I turned to the driver, my hand upon the door. He was small, dark-haired and disapproving, a glint of red from the traffic light coloring the tip of his nose. "Look," I said, "take her home." I gave him the address and my last $5 bill. He took it, glumly disapproving. "No, Buffle," she said, "I want to go to Harlem, be with you." "Good night," I said, stepping back from the curb. We were in the middle of the block and I saw them pull away. "No," she said, "no, Buffle. Don't leave." Her face, wild-eyed and white, showed in the door. I stood there, watching him plunge swiftly and contemptuously out of sight, his tail light as red as his nose. I walked with eyes closed, seeming to float and trying to clear my head, then opened them and crossed to the park side, along the cobbles. High above, the cars sailed round and round the drive, their headlights stabbing. All the taxis were hired, all going downtown. Center of gravity. I plodded on, my head a-whirl. Then near 110th Street I saw her again. She was waiting beneath a street lamp, waving. I wasn't surprised, I had become fatalistic. I came up slowly, hearing her laugh. She was ahead of me and beginning to run, barefoot, loosely, as in a dream. Running. Unsteadily but swift, and me surprised and unable to catch up, lead-legged, seeing her ahead and calling, "Sybil, Sybil." Running lead-legged along the park side. "Come on, Buffle," she called, looking back and stumbling. "Catch Sybil." Sybil, running barefoot and girdleless along the park. I ran, the briefcase heavy beneath my arm. Something told me I had to get to the office. "Sybil, wait." I called. She ran, the colors of her dress flaring flame-alike in the bright places of the dark. A rustling motion, legs working awkwardly beneath her and white heels flashing, her skirts held high. Let her go, I thought. But now she was crossing the street and running wildly, only to go down at the curb and standing and going down again, with a bumped backside, completely unsteady, now that her momentum was gone. "Buffle," she said as I came up. "Damn, Buffle, you push me?" "Get up," I said without anger. "Get up," taking her soft arm. She stood, her arms flung wide for an embrace. No, I said, this isn't Thursday. I've got to get there. What do they plan for me, Sybil? Who, Boofle? Jack and George? Talbot and all? You ran me down, Boofle, she said. Forget them. Bunch of deadheads. Unhipped, you know. We didn't make this stinking world, Boofle. Forget, I saw the taxi just in time, approaching swiftly from the corner, a double-decker bus looming 2 blocks behind. The cabbie looked over, his head out of the window, sitting high at the wheel as he made a swift U-turn and came alongside. His face was shocked, disbelieving. Come now, Sybil, I said, and no tricks. Pardon me, old man, the driver said, his voice concerned, but you're not taking her up in Harlem, are you? No, the lady's going downtown, I said. Get in, Sybil. Boofle's an LA dictator, she said to the driver, who looked at me silently, as though I were mad. A game stud, he muttered, a most game stud. But she got in. Just an LA dictator, Boofle. Look, I told him, take her straight home and don't let her get out of the cab. I don't want her running around Harlem. She's precious, a great lady, sure, man, I don't blame you, he said. Things is popping up there. The cab was already rolling as I yelled, what's going on? They're taking the joint apart, he called above the shifting of the gears. I watched them go and made for the bus stop. This time I'll make sure, I thought, stepping out and flagging the bus and getting on. If she comes back, she'll find me gone. And I knew stronger than ever that I should hurry, but was still too foggy in my mind, couldn't get myself together. I sat gripping my briefcase, my eyes closed, feeling the bus sailing swift beneath me. Soon it would turn up 7th Avenue. Sybil, forgive me, I thought. The bus rolled. But when I opened my eyes we were turning into Riverside Drive. This too I accepted calmly, the whole night was out of joint. I'd had too many drinks. Time ran fluid, invisible, sad. Looking out I could see a ship moving upstream, its running lights bright points in the night. The cool sea smell came through to me, constant and thick in the swiftly unfolding blur of anchored boats, dark water and lights pouring past. Across the river was Jersey and I remembered my entry into Harlem. Long past, I thought, long past. I was as if drowned in the river. To my right and ahead the church spire towered high, crowned with a red light of warning. And now we were passing the hero's tomb and I recalled a visit there. You went up the steps and inside and you looked far below to find him, at rest, draped flags. 125th Street came quickly. I stumbled off, hearing the bus pull away as I faced the water. There was a light breeze, but now with the motion gone the heat returned, clinging. Far ahead in the dark I saw the monumental bridge, ropes of lights across the dark river, and closer, high above the shoreline, the Palisades, their revolutionary agony lost in the riotous lights of roller coasters. The time is now. The sign across the river began, but with history stomping upon me with hobnailed boots, I thought with a laugh, why worry about time? I crossed the street to the drinking fountain, feeling the water cooling, going down, then dampened a handkerchief and swabbed my face, eyes. The water flashed, gurgled, sprayed. I pressed forward my face, feeling wet cool, hearing the infant joy of fountains. Then heard the other sound. It was not the river nor the curving cars that flashed through the dark, but pitched like a distant crowd or a swift river at flood tide. I moved forward, found the steps and started down. Below the bridge lay the hard stone river of the street, and for a second I looked at the waves of cobblestones as though I expected water, as though the fountain above had drawn from them. Still I would enter and go across to Harlem. Below the steps the trolley rails gleamed steely. I hurried, the sound drawing closer, myriad-voiced, humming, enfolding me, numbing the air, as I started beneath the ramp. It came, a twitter, a coo, a subdued roar that seemed trying to tell me something, give me some message. I stopped, looking around me, the girders marched off rhythmically into the dark, over the cobblestones the red lights shone. Then I was beneath the bridge and it was as though they had been waiting for me and no one but me, dedicated and set aside for me, for an eternity. And I looked above toward the sound, my mind forming an image of wings, as something struck my face and streaked, and I could smell the foul air now, and see the encrusted barrage, feeling it streak my jacket and raising my briefcase above my head and running, hearing it splattering around, falling like rain. I ran the gauntlet, thinking, even the birds, even the pigeons and the sparrows and the goddamn gulls. I ran blindly, boiling with outrage and despair and harsh laughter. Running from the birds to what, I didn't know. I ran. Why was I here at all? I ran through the night, ran within myself. Ran.